Another convention, this one was the American Medical Association, meeting on the Isle of Capri with the expensible side trips to London, Paris, Rome, and what the management kept referring to as St. Petersburg. Once again, the director of the demindologists made a tape of himself rather than to tie up the time of a graduate student. The speaker, a distinguished brain surgeon, was the association's director of legislative restrictions. Today, gentlemen, medicine faces its gravest crisis since the rise of the chiropractic. Once again, we are surrounded by the deminded. They are stronger than ever. They come at us from all directions, and there is no use kidding ourselves in the recent years that they have gained much ground, and from this gain, they are in a much better position to press their attack to its logical conclusion, namely, the death of organized medicine as we know it today. The cry today is for medical care for the old folks, but you know and I know that medical care for the old folks will be but the prelude to universal health care for all, or socialized medicine. On the odd chance that there are some among you who doubt about the ability or the inevitability of this sequence, let me remind you the convention of my own humble and, I regret to say, futile part in warning the members against the early signs of the dread disease when first they appeared in the body politic and social. The first symptoms, you'll recall, were centered on the request for a prepaid group insurance for hospital care. The whole thing was said to have no relation or relationship at all to the doctors, but merely to be a helpful budgeting device for potential patients. Many in the profession, I am sorry to have to recall, were deceived by this plea and went along with the request. For myself and a few others, as soon as we spotted the word quote-unquote group, we knew we were in the presence of socialism. We said so at the time. We have said so ever since. And we say so today. Anything that casts even the slightest shadow over the sacred relationship between doctor and his patient's finances. Let me say that again. Shadow over his sacred relationship between the doctor and his patient's finances is socialism. Anything that casts even the slightest shadow over the sacred relationship between the doctor and his patient's finances is socialism. As we predicted, it was not long before the next stage set in. The impertinent demand that the doctor's fees too be insured against, as if we were some kind of natural disaster. Over our protest, the profession again acceded to the socialistic deminded. Rates, schedules for doctors were set up, exactly like those for air travel or Caribbean cruises. Doctors were paid, not by the patient, but by the group, as if the group ever had consumption or vapors or tired blood. The key point, however, was that the fees were known in advance. We were in deep in trouble, but there was worse to come. The rates of progress of the disease became terrifying. First, there was treason within the profession. Young doctors, motivated by a false idealism, joined together in groups practice. Even in the British Rose and the Benedict Arnold, demindological labor unions embraced these traitors. Unions built their own hospitals. They formed their own groups and pushed the whole insurance scheme into a preventative medicine. Worst of all, They laid rough enough, untrained hands upon every heart of the science of healing. They began the first study of outsiders of the cost and cost of medical care. Now the disease has reached its climax. Socialized medicine, under various more palatable names, is the most avowed goal of the wide area of the population, and even in the government. If it comes, and we cannot be optimistic that it won't, the profession will be ruined. Bureaucrats will demand a fixed scale of prices. The frontiers of free enterprise will be fenced in. The advance of medicine will grind to a halt. I, for one, freely predict that, if we are socialized, many of the professionals' brightest lights will return in sorrow to the mother trade of barbering, where at least they get to keep the tips. One of our greatest problems is communicating our concerns to our patients. Quote, "After all, what difference does it make?" End of quote, is a question asked by people of good will and small brain. Quote, "Look at England," quote unquote. They go on, quote again, "Surely the citizens there are better off medically than they used to be," end of quote. Well, may they look, or say, "Look at England, look at her. Every tatter-mallion lounger and lounger and loiterer in London sports a wig and set of false teeth, while the empire's gone glimmering after Babylon entire." That's what socialized medicine's done for England. What we have to get across to the patient and to the voters is the fundamental connection between the fee system and the march of medicine. Without fees, and big ones too, there would have been no wonder drug, no antibiotic, no tranquilizer, no Paul de Cruf. Once again, a time, we had socialized medicine. When we were all barbers, we were thoroughly socialized employees of the state and military or courtly service. What did you get then in the line of treatment? You got leeches and bloodletting generally. You got herbs and rare earths. You got the water cure. You got the phases of the moon. You got the clysters of simple, enormous sizes. The best thing a doctor could do for you then was to give you a shave and a haircut. 2 bits. Just about what the treatments were worth. The system continually, basically right into the century, with the doctor, a kind of community functionary, handing out folk remedies to the folks and just taking his pay in chickens and parsnips, much like the parson. Abruptly, everything changed. The march of medicine began. We cured syphilis, typhoid, bubonic plague. We discovered allergens and psychoanalysis, 2 of the most fruitful fields a man can enter. Geriatrics, pediatrics, and gynecology, and many other names of nowhere into here. And mankind climbed steeply towards a new era of tranquility. What brought all this in? In a word, cash. When America moved from the country into town, people no longer had the poultry and produce they used to pay their doctors with. They had to pay with cash. Doctors moved from the lower middle class to the middle class to the upper middle class. They got rich. And, as in every other breakthrough on the frontiers of free enterprise, from the spinning jenny to the seeing commercials, that benefit filtered down from those on top, the entrepreneurs, to those on the bottom, the customers. For example, we have been so successful in fighting infant mortality that, we've had to go in the business for birth control. Other beneficiaries are the well-oiled businesses, the modern art businesses, and the travel businesses. All have benefited enormously from the great strides of modern medicine. This has happened because the free system is solidly rooted in nature herself. I dare say there isn't a doctor in the house who hasn't said to his patient, quote, "We don't cure you, we only cooperate with nature," end of quote. Nowhere is that cooperation more directive and more effective than in the therapeutic application of fees based as if they are on the patient's ability to pay, with just a touch added on top of that ability. It is precisely that touch, calculated with exquisite delicacy and applied with the inexorability of doom, that has made America the healthiest nation of its size in history. The constant presence of that touch activates nature, and nature, deep in the patient's subconscious, keeps him healthy most of the time and gets him healthy fast when he does not fall sick. The vital connection from fee to nature to good health is mostly seen in psychoanalysis. Say a patient comes in suffering from guilt feelings over having carnally desired his mother when he was 2 years old. Well, the poor chap lies around the office, maundering on the ever-evening Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at $50 a visit. The twilight afternoons go by. The seasons follow one another in the eternal return. After a year or two, the man realizes that he's broke, and he has to get a job working nights to keep up with these treatments. Presto, he's cured. By the Freudian process known as transfer, he switches his own guilt to the analyst. He never needs another treatment and soon forgets all about his mother and the zestful efforts to own a house again and perhaps a second pair of shoes. The lesson is clear. When you can't afford to be sick, you stay well. Put illness within reach of everyone and we'll have a nation of invalids. We tamper with nature at our peril. However clear this fundamental rule of healing is to us, we must admit that the general public does not understand it, and the members of Congress understand it least of all. It must, therefore, be our constant concern to get the point across. I have nothing but commendations for those doctors who, for the last several years, have been prefacing each consultation with a little sermon on socialized medicine and the sanctity of the patient-doctor relationship. Medical research has shown that these to be extraordinarily effective when given as an anesthesia. It is taking hold just before a major operation. It is vital, of course, to keep up your payments to the emergency fund in Washington. We have for a long time held and had the largest lobby in the town, but we must increase our staff and increase our efforts. The population explosion and the creation of new states of the Union has been sending new Congress members into the Capitol yearly. Our people must meet them all, carry their bags, get them a cab, and in general show them that the doctors are their friends. Naturally, this takes financial support. I can assure you that there is no better investment, and, like most of you, I'm something of an expert in the investment field. Some imaginative freedom fighters have combined these two techniques. Heavy givers to the emergency fund, they have prorated their donations among their patients and explained by a sticker on the statement that their surcharge will cease when the socialization threat ceases. The sticker also has room for the name of the congressman to write to. For anyone wishing to join the effort, a stack of statement stickers will be found appropriately in the lobby. But whether As an individual practitioner, you must adopt these new medical techniques or just continue in the invaluable day in, day out campaign of doubling all fees when groups are involved. I urge eternal vigilance and renewed dedication to the professional ideal expressed in the chorus of the hymn to the hypocrites. Don't let them take it away.